The bright studio lights of The View glowed warmly as the audience settled into their seats, buzzing with anticipation. It was a typical morning for the popular talk show, except today's guest was anything but ordinary. Elon Musk, the billionaire, entrepreneur known for his groundbreaking work in technology and space exploration, had agreed to appear on the program. The hosts exchanged quick glances backstage, excitement mixed with nerves visible on their faces. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. It was a chance to dive deep into the mind of one of the most polarizing figures of the modern era. Jasmine Crockett, one of the co-hosts, adjusted her microphone while glancing at the teleprompter. She had prepared extensively for this segment, determined to ask the tough questions that others might shy away from. Known for her sharp wit and unapologetic demeanor, Jasmine often found herself at odds with powerful individuals. Today, she felt ready to take on Musk, whose influence over global industries seemed almost limitless. As the cameras rolled and the theme music played, the hosts walked onto the set, waving enthusiastically to the cheering crowd. The energy in the room was electric, and the audience leaned forward in their chairs, eager to see what would unfold. After brief introductions, the conversation began lightheartedly, with the hosts asking Musk about his latest projects. He spoke animatedly about his plans to colonize Mars, advancements in artificial intelligence, and efforts to combat climate change through sustainable energy solutions. His charisma was undeniable, and the audience clapped frequently, clearly impressed by his vision for the future. But beneath the surface, Jasmine sensed an opportunity. As the discussion moved along smoothly, she decided it was time to steer the conversation toward more contentious topics. Leaning slightly forward, she smiled politely before saying, "Elon, your achievements are undoubtedly remarkable. But there have been some concerns raised recently about working conditions at some of your facilities. Do you think the pursuit of innovation sometimes comes at the expense of people?" Musk paused for a moment, his expression shifting ever so slightly. He tilted his head, considering her words carefully before responding. "I appreciate the question," he said, his tone measured but firm. "But I'd argue that no one is doing more to improve the lives of millions than we are. Yes, building the future requires hard work and sacrifice, but the end result will benefit humanity as a whole." Jasmine nodded thoughtfully, though her eyes remained fixed on him. "That's a fair point," she replied, her voice calm but probing. "But when reports emerge alleging labor exploitation or unsafe environments, doesn't that undermine the very progress you're trying to achieve? Shouldn't the process matter as much as the outcome?" The other hosts glanced at each other nervously, sensing the shift in tone. One of them interjected briefly, attempting to lighten the mood. "Well, let's not forget all the good that comes out of these innovations," she said with a laugh, hoping to ease the tension. But Jasmine wasn't deterred. She turned back to Musk, her gaze unwavering. "Let me rephrase my question," she continued, her voice steady. "When you talk about changing the world, who exactly gets to define what that change looks like? Is it you? Or should it be a collective decision made by everyone affected by your decisions?" Musk's jaw tightened imperceptibly, though his smile remained intact. "It's easy to criticize from the sidelines," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But someone has to make the hard choices, take the risks, and push boundaries. If we waited for consensus every time, nothing would ever get done." The audience murmured in agreement, though a few members nodded approvingly at Jasmine's line of questioning. Encouraged by the reaction, she pressed further. "But isn't it also true that unchecked power can lead to unintended consequences? For instance, your ventures often operate in areas where regulations are minimal. Doesn't that raise ethical concerns about accountability?" At this, Musk's patience began to wear thin. He sat up straighter, his earlier charm giving way to a more defensive posture. "Look," he said, his voice firmer now. "I'm not here to debate ethics with someone who hasn't spent a single day running a company or solving real-world problems. My focus is on creating solutions that actually work, not pandering to critics who don't understand the challenges involved." Jasmine raised an eyebrow, unfazed by his rebuttal. "So, you're saying that anyone who questions your methods simply doesn't understand them? That seems dismissive, especially given the scale of your impact on society. The tension in the room grew palpable. The other hosts tried to intervene again, steering the conversation back to safer territory. They asked Musk about his favorite books, his thoughts on leadership, and even joked about his social media presence. But Jasmine refused to let the issue drop. She knew the stakes were high, not just for this interview but for the broader implications of holding influential figures accountable. Finally, after several minutes of polite yet pointed exchanges, Musk leaned forward, his piercing gaze locking onto Jasmine. "Let me be clear," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "What I do isn't about ego or personal gain. It's about survival, ensuring that humanity has a future worth living for. And if that means making unpopular decisions, then so be it." The audience erupted into applause, though it was clear they were divided. Some cheered Musk's boldness, while others whispered amongst themselves, clearly siding with Jasmine's perspective. Backstage, the producers exchanged worried glances, unsure how far this confrontation would go. For Jasmine, the moment was both exhilarating and daunting. She had always believed in using her platform to challenge authority, but facing off against someone like Musk required precision and courage. As the segment approached its halfway mark, she took a deep breath, preparing for her next move. Little did she know the real drama was only beginning, and it would leave everyone in the room stunned. The clash between Musk and Jasmine highlighted a deeper divide in society. The struggle between innovation and responsibility, ambition and ethics. While the audience watched intently, many couldn't help but wonder whether this confrontation would lead to meaningful dialogue or merely fuel the growing polarization surrounding figures like Musk. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: history was being made right before their eyes. The tension in the studio had reached a tipping point. Jasmine Crockett's questions were no longer just probing. They were relentless, slicing through Musk's polished responses like a knife. The audience, initially entertained by the back and forth banter, now sat frozen, unsure whether to cheer or cringe. The other hosts tried their best to steer the conversation toward lighter topics, but Jasmine refused to let go of the reins. Her focus was laser-sharp, and she wasn't about to back down. Musk, on the other hand, was visibly growing more agitated. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his earlier charm fading with each passing second. "You keep talking about ethics," he said, his voice rising slightly. "But what have you done to solve any of these so-called problems? I'm out there building rockets, creating sustainable energy solutions, and trying to save humanity. What are you doing?" Jasmine didn't flinch. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she replied, "I'm not here to compare accomplishments, Elon. My job is to ask the hard questions, especially when it comes to people in positions of power. And right now I'm asking you, why does it seem like your companies operate above the law? Why do we keep hearing stories about workers being mistreated while you're busy making headlines for your next big project?" the audience murmured. Again, some nodding in agreement, others shaking their heads. One man in the front row whispered loudly, "She's got a point." Another woman nearby shot him a disapproving look, muttering, "Leave him alone. He's doing more than anyone else." The division was clear, and it mirrored the larger societal debate happening outside the studio walls. Musk clenched his jaw, clearly frustrated. He glanced at the other hosts, hoping for support, but they avoided his gaze. They knew better than to jump into the fray. Instead, one of them attempted another diversion, asking Musk about his thoughts on artificial intelligence, but Jasmine cut in before he could respond. "Artificial intelligence is exactly what I want to talk about," she said, turning back to Musk. "You've been vocal about AI's potential, but what about its dangers? People are worried that companies like yours might prioritize profits over safety. How can we trust you to regulate something that powerful?" Musk exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "That's such a loaded question," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "AI isn't some magic genie waiting to destroy the world. It's a tool, a revolutionary one, and if we handle it responsibly, it could transform life as we know it." "But who decides what responsibly means?" Jasmine countered quickly. "Is it left up to billionaires like you, or should governments step in to ensure accountability?" This time Musk laughed, a short, sharp sound that echoed through the studio. Governments? He said, almost mockingly. Do you really think bureaucrats sitting in offices understand technology enough to regulate it? By the time they catch up, we'd already be decades behind. Jasmine crossed her arms, her expression unwavering. So your solution is to let corporations self-regulate? That sounds dangerous, especially when those corporations are driven by profit margins. The audience gasped audibly, sensing the intensity of the moment. Even the crew members operating the cameras exchanged glances, whispering quietly behind their equipment. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It felt like a courtroom drama unfolding live on national television. One of the co-hosts, desperate to defuse the situation, chimed in with a nervous laugh. Well, this is certainly a lively discussion, she said, forcing a smile. Let's take a quick break, shall we? She gestured toward the producer, signaling for a commercial pause. But Jasmine wasn't finished. Before the host could finish her sentence, Jasmine interrupted, her voice firm and clear. No, let's not take a break yet. We need to address this head-on. Elon, you claim to care about humanity, but your actions often suggest otherwise. You talk about saving the planet, but critics argue that your ventures exploit both people and resources. How do you respond to that? Musk stared at her, his patience finally snapping. You don't get it, he said, his voice colder now. Everything I do is for the greater good, even if people like you refuse to see it. If you spent less time attacking me and more time actually contributing to solving real problems, maybe we'd get somewhere. The audience erupted into a mix of cheers and boos, the noise filling the studio like a storm. Jasmine raised an eyebrow, unfazed by his outburst. Attacking you? No, Elon, I'm challenging you. There's a difference. Accountability shouldn't feel like an attack. It should feel like progress. At this, Musk stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The sudden movement startled everyone, including the other hosts who scrambled to regain control of the situation. Enough, Musk said, pointing a finger directly at Jasmine. I came here to share ideas, not to be lectured by someone who doesn't understand the first thing about innovation. Jasmine blinked, momentarily caught, off guard by his reaction. But she quickly recovered, standing up herself to match his stance. And I'm here to hold you accountable, Elon, that's my job. If you can't handle criticism, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. For a brief moment, it seemed like neither of them would back down. Then, without warning, Musk turned to the producer standing off camera. Get her off the set, he demanded, his voice low but commanding. The audience gasped collectively, the shock rippling through the room like a wave. Jasmine's eyes widened as two security guards stepped forward, approaching her cautiously. Excuse me, she said, her voice rising in disbelief. You can't just kick me off the show. Yes, I can, Musk shot back, his tone icy. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and be insulted. The other hosts looked at each other in panic, unsure how to proceed. One of them tried to intervene, speaking directly to Musk. Elon, please, let's calm down. We can continue the conversation. No, he interrupted, shaking his head. This is over. As the security guards gently guided Jasmine away from the table, she refused to stay quiet. Freedom of speech is under attack, she declared, her voice ringing out across the studio. If you silence dissenting voices, you're no better than the systems you claim to fight against. The audience was in chaos now, some clapping in support of Musk, others booing loudly. The noise drowned out everything else as the producers frantically signaled for a commercial break. The screen cut to black, leaving millions of viewers at home stunned and scrambling to process what they had just witnessed. Backstage, the atmosphere was equally chaotic. Jasmine paced angrily, refusing to speak to anyone except her assistant Lisa, who hovered nearby, offering words of reassurance. You were brilliant out there, Lisa said, her voice filled with admiration. Don't let him rattle you. Meanwhile, Elon Musk retreated to the green room where his team gathered around him. His assistant Kevin handed him a bottle of water, his expression concerned. "Are you okay?" Kevin asked cautiously. "I'm fine," Musk replied, though his clenched fists told a different story. "She crossed a line. Nobody talks to me like that." Kevin hesitated before responding. "People are going to have opinions, Elon. You knew this might happen. What's important now is how you handle it moving forward." Musk sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'll issue a statement later. For now, I just need a minute to cool off." The control room. The producers huddled together, debating their next steps. Some argued that they should apologize publicly and invite Jasmine back for a follow-up episode. Others insisted that Musk's decision should stand, fearing backlash from his massive fan base. The tension spilled over into heated arguments, mirroring the chaos that had unfolded on set. As the dust began to settle, both Jasmine and Musk found themselves reflecting on the confrontation. For Jasmine, it reinforced her belief in the importance of holding powerful figures accountable, even if it meant facing hostility. For Musk, it served as a reminder of the challenges that came with being in the spotlight, challenges that only seemed to grow more intense with each passing day. Outside the studio, social media exploded with reactions. Hashtags related to the incident trended worldwide, with users passionately defending either side. Memes, GIFs, and hot takes flooded platforms like Twitter and Instagram, turning what had started as a simple TV segment into a cultural phenomenon. For millions of viewers, the clash between Jasmine Crockett and Elon Musk raised uncomfortable questions about power, accountability, and the role of public figures in shaping the future. While opinions remained divided, one thing was certain: the events of that morning would not be forgotten anytime soon. The fallout from the explosive clash between Jasmine Crockett and Elon Musk spread like wildfire. Within minutes of the broadcast cutting to commercial, social media platforms were flooded with reactions. Supporters of Musk hailed him as a visionary who had finally stood up to unfair criticism, while others praised Jasmine for her courage in challenging one of the most powerful men in the world. The divide was sharp, and it mirrored the broader polarization gripping society. On one side, those who believed innovation should come without interference, and on the other, those who argued that unchecked power needed oversight. Backstage, Jasmine sat in a quiet corner of the green room, her mind racing. Lisa, her assistant, hovered nearby, offering words of encouragement. "You did what you had to do," Lisa said softly. "People will see that." Jasmine nodded but didn't respond immediately. She stared at the floor, replaying the confrontation. In her head, she knew she had pushed Musk hard, maybe too hard, but she also believed that someone needed to ask the tough questions. Her phone buzzed incessantly on the table beside her, notifications pouring in from every direction. Reporters, producers, and even strangers were reaching out, eager to hear her side of the story. For now, though, she wanted to stay focused. "I just hope people understand why I did it," Jasmine finally said, looking up at Lisa. "It's not about attacking him personally. It's about accountability. Someone has to hold these people responsible." Lisa smiled reassuringly. "They'll get it. You've always been a voice for the underdog. This is no different." Meanwhile, in the green room reserved for guests, Elon Musk paced back and forth, his frustration still simmering beneath the surface. His team surrounded him, trying to calm him down and strategize their next move. Kevin, his assistant, handed him another bottle of water and spoke cautiously. "Elon, we need to think about how this looks to the public. People are going to have strong opinions, but we can control the narrative if we act fast." Musk stopped pacing and turned to face. "Kevin, what do you suggest?" he asked, his tone clipped. "We release a statement," Kevin replied. "Something firm but professional. Acknowledge the disagreement, reiterate your commitment to progress, and leave it at that. Let her have her moment, but make sure everyone knows where you stand." Musk nodded slowly, considering the advice. He trusted Kevin's judgment, but part of him wanted to retaliate more aggressively. Still, he knew better than to let emotions dictate his actions. "Fine," he said after a pause. "Draft something, but keep it short. I don't want to give her any more attention than she already has." As the day wore on, news outlets picked up the story, dissecting every moment of the heated exchange. Clips of the confrontation played endlessly on cable networks, accompanied by commentary from pundits and analysts. Some framed Musk as a misunderstood genius, unfairly targeted by critics, while others portrayed Jasmine as a fearless advocate for ethical leadership. Opinions were polarized, but one thing was undeniable. The incident had captured the world's attention. That evening, Jasmine appeared on a rival network for an exclusive interview. Dressed in a crisp blazer and seated across from a seasoned journalist named Ryan, she addressed the controversy head-on. "I went into that interview knowing it would be challenging," she began, her voice steady. "But I believe it's important to ask difficult questions, especially when it comes to individuals who wield so much influence over our lives." Ryan leaned forward, clearly intrigued. "Do you regret anything about how things unfolded?" Jasmine shook her head. "No, I don't. I stand by everything I said. What happened today wasn't about me versus Elon Musk. It was about holding power accountable. If we shy away from these conversations, we risk letting people operate without consequences." Her words resonated with many viewers, particularly those who felt disillusioned by the growing concentration of wealth and influence in the hands of a few. Social media lit up again, with hashtags like "our accountability" matters trending alongside clips of her interview. Critics accused her of grandstanding, but supporters rallied behind her, praising her bravery and conviction. On the other side, Musk's team worked tirelessly to craft a response. By late afternoon, they released a carefully worded statement on his official website. Today's discussion highlighted the challenges faced by innovators striving to create a better future, the statement read. "While disagreements are inevitable, it's crucial to focus on solutions rather than distractions. I remain committed to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity." The statement was shared widely, drawing mixed reactions. Some applauded Musk for taking the high ground, while others dismissed it as evasive and self-serving. Regardless, it succeeded in shifting some of the narrative back in his favor. Amidst the chaos, the hosts of The View found themselves caught in the crossfire. Back in the studio, Rachel, one of the co-hosts, sat in her dressing room scrolling through her phone. The backlash was overwhelming. Fans of both Musk and Jasmine had taken to social media to criticize the show for allowing the confrontation to escalate. Some accused the producers of staging the drama for ratings, while others demanded answers about why Jasmine had been removed. Rachel sighed heavily, setting her phone aside. She glanced at her husband, Mark, who had joined her briefly, before heading home. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she admitted, rubbing her temples. "We're supposed to be a platform for meaningful discussions, not a battleground for egos." Mark nodded sympathetically. "It's not your fault," he said. "You guys are just caught in the middle of something much bigger than yourselves. I know," Rachel replied, though her expression remained troubled. "But it doesn't make it any easier. People are pointing fingers at us, saying we let things get out of hand. And honestly, they're not wrong." Later that night, the producers held an emergency meeting to discuss the fallout. The mood in the room was tense, with everyone aware of the stakes. Ratings for the show had skyrocketed, but at what cost? Some argued that the controversy could damage the show's reputation, while others saw it as an opportunity to lean into the drama and boost viewership further. "We need to address this directly," one producer suggested. "Maybe bring Jasmine back for a follow-up episode. Let her explain her side and then invite Elon to respond if he's willing." Another producer shook their head. "Are you kidding? Do you really think he'd agree to come back after all? Besides, we risk alienating half our audience depending on which way we go." The debate raged on, with no clear resolution in sight. Ultimately, they decided to wait and see how the situation evolved before making any definitive moves. In the meantime, they instructed the hosts to avoid discussing the incident publicly, hoping to minimize further scrutiny. As the hours ticked by, both Jasmine and Musk retreated to their respective corners, reflecting on the events of the day. For Jasmine, the experience reinforced her belief in the importance of speaking truth to power. She knew she had made enemies, but she also knew she had inspired countless others to question authority and demand transparency. For Musk, the confrontation served as a stark reminder of the challenges that came with being a public figure. Every decision he made, every word he spoke, was scrutinized under a microscope. While he remained steadfast in his mission, he couldn't ignore the toll it took on his personal life. By midnight, the initial frenzy began to die down, though the conversation showed no signs of ending anytime soon. Across the country, people gathered around dinner tables, debated in online forums, and shared their thoughts with friends and family. The clash between Jasmine Crockett and Elon Musk had become more than just a viral moment. It had sparked a national dialogue about the balance between innovation and ethics, ambition and responsibility. And as the world continued to grapple with these questions, one thing was certain: neither Jasmine nor Musk would shy away from the spotlight anytime soon. Their showdown may have ended, but the ripple effects would be felt for weeks, months, and perhaps even years to come. The days following the explosive clash between Jasmine Crockett and Elon Musk were anything but quiet. The incident had become a cultural touchstone, dominating headlines and sparking fierce debates across every platform imaginable. For Jasmine, life had changed almost overnight. She was now a household name, recognized not just as a co-host of The View but as a symbol of resistance against unchecked power. Her inbox was flooded with messages, some praising her courage, others hurling insults. Supporters hailed her as a modern-day crusader for accountability, while critics accused her of grandstanding for attention. Jasmine handled the chaos with a mix of grace and determination. Early one morning, she sat at her kitchen table, sipping coffee and scrolling through the endless notifications on her phone. Lisa, her assistant, entered the room carrying a stack of papers. "You've got interviews lined up all week," Lisa said, setting the documents down. "Everyone wants to hear your take on what happened." Jasmine nodded, though her expression was weary. "I knew this would happen," she said, leaning back in her chair. "But I didn't expect it to blow up like this. It's exhausting." Lisa smiled sympathetically. "You're making waves, Jasmine. That's a good thing. People are finally talking about these issues because of you." Jasmine sighed, glancing out the window. "I just hope something meaningful comes out of it. All this attention is great, but if it doesn't lead to real change, what's the point?" Meanwhile, Elon Musk was dealing with his own storm. Back at his private estate, he spent hours in meetings with his team, strategizing how to manage the fallout. Public perception was slipping, and his critics were using the incident to paint him as an authoritarian figure unwilling to listen to dissenting voices. While some of his supporters defended him fiercely, others began questioning whether his methods were truly justified. Kevin, his assistant, joined him in the study late one afternoon. "We need to pivot," Kevin said, placing a folder on the desk. "People are starting to see you as unapproachable. If we don't address that, it could hurt your reputation long term." Musk frowned, flipping through the folder. "What do you suggest?" he asked, his tone measured. "We launch a new initiative," Kevin replied. "Something big and visible, that shows you care about people, not just profits. Maybe focus on affordable housing or education in underserved communities. It'll shift the narrative and remind everyone why they admire you in the first place." Musk considered the idea, tapping his fingers on the desk. "It's risky," he said after a moment. "If it fails, they'll crucify me." "It's worth the risk," Kevin insisted. "Right now, you need to show vulnerability. People respect strength, but they connect with humanity." Reluctantly, Musk agreed. Over the next few days, his team worked tirelessly to develop a program aimed at providing affordable housing and educational resources to communities in need. They dubbed it Future Foundations and announced its launch during a press conference held at one of Musk's facilities. Standing before a crowd of reporters and cameras, Musk spoke passionately about the initiative, emphasizing his commitment to improving lives beyond technology and innovation. "Progress isn't just about building rockets or electric cars," he said, his voice steady. "It's about ensuring that everyone has access to opportunities that can help them thrive. This is my way of giving back." The announcement drew mixed reactions. Supporters praised Musk for stepping up, calling the initiative a bold step toward addressing systemic inequalities. Critics, however, dismissed it as a calculated PR move designed to repair his image. Social media buzzed with opinions, hashtags like Connor Future Foundations and Musk PR stunt trending side by side. Back at The View, the hosts were still reeling from the aftermath of the confrontation. Ratings for the show had soared, but the controversy had taken its toll. Rachel, one of the co-hosts, struggled to reconcile the show's mission with the unintended consequences of the heated exchange. One evening, as she prepared for another taping, she confided in Mark, her husband, who had stopped by the studio to bring her dinner. "I feel like we're losing sight of what this show is supposed to be about," Rachel admitted, picking at her food, earlying. The View was always meant to be a space for open dialogue, not a battleground for egos. But now, it feels like we're just feeding into the drama. Mark nodded thoughtfully. "It's tough," he said. "You're caught in the middle of forces much bigger than yourselves, but maybe there's a way to use this moment to steer the conversation back to where it belongs." Rachel looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" "Instead of focusing on the conflict itself, highlight the larger issues behind it," Mark suggested. "Talk about accountability, ethics, and the role of leadership in shaping the future. Make it less about Jasmine versus Elon and more about the questions their clash raised." Rachel considered his words, a small smile forming on her lips. "You might be onto something," she said. "Let me run this by the producers. Maybe we can salvage something positive out of all this." The next day, the hosts gathered backstage to discuss the upcoming episode. Rachel pitched Mark's idea, emphasizing the importance of turning the controversy into an opportunity for meaningful discussion. After some debate, the team agreed to dedicate the entire show to exploring the themes sparked by the confrontation. They invited experts, activists, and even former employees of Musk's companies to weigh in, creating a balanced and thoughtful dialogue. As the cameras rolled, the atmosphere in the studio felt different. Gone was the tension of the previous week, replaced by a sense of purpose. The hosts tackled complex topics like corporate responsibility, the ethics of technological advancement, and the balance between innovation and regulation. Audience members chimed in with their thoughts, sharing personal stories and insights that added depth to the conversation. For Jasmine, watching the episode from home was both validating and humbling. She realized that while her confrontation with Musk had ignited the debate, it was the collective effort of many voices that kept it alive. Later that evening, she posted a message on social media thanking her supporters and urging them to keep pushing for accountability. "This isn't about me or Elon," she wrote. "It's about creating a world where progress benefits everyone, not just a select few." On the other side, Musk watched the episode with a mixture of curiosity and frustration. While he appreciated the attempt to refocus the narrative, he couldn't shake the feeling that the damage had already been done. Still, he remained committed to proving his critics wrong. In the weeks that followed, he threw himself into the Future Foundations project, visiting communities and meeting with local leaders to ensure its success. As the dust settled, both Jasmine and Musk found themselves reflecting on the lessons learned. For Jasmine, the experience reinforced her belief in the power of questioning authority and holding leaders accountable. For Musk, it served as a reminder of the complexities of leadership in an era defined by constant scrutiny. Neither emerged unscathed, but both had grown in ways they hadn't anticipated. And as the world continued to grapple with the questions raised by their clash, one thing became clear: the conversation was far from over. Whether it led to meaningful change or simply faded into the background remained to be seen. But for now, the ripple effects of that fateful morning on The View continued to shape the broader discourse about power, ethics, and the future of humanity. Weeks had passed since the explosive clash between Jasmine Crockett and Elon Musk, but its echoes still reverberated through society. The incident had sparked a national conversation about accountability, ethics, and the role of powerful figures in shaping the future. While the initial frenzy had died down, the underlying themes refused to fade away. People were still talking, on social media and classrooms, around dinner tables, and the debate showed no signs of slowing. Jasmine Crockett sat in her living room late one evening, flipping through a stack of letters she'd received from viewers. Some were heartfelt notes of gratitude, thanking her for standing up to Musk and asking tough questions. Others were harsh criticisms, accusing her of being overly aggressive or self-serving. Despite the mixed reactions, Jasmine couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had ignited a dialogue that many people had been too afraid or too apathetic to start. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and she picked it up to see a notification from Twitter. A new hashtag, #, accountability for all, was trending worldwide. Scrolling through the post, she saw messages from ordinary citizens sharing their own experiences with corporate exploitation, government neglect, and unchecked power. It wasn't just about Musk anymore. It was about holding everyone accountable, from CEOs to politicians to everyday leaders. Jasmine smiled faintly as she set the phone down. "This is what I wanted," she murmured to herself. Not fame, not drama, just a chance to make people think. Across town, Elon Musk was also reflecting on the aftermath. He stood on the balcony of his estate, staring out at the city lights below. His mind raced with thoughts of the Future Foundation's initiative, which had begun gaining traction. Local news outlets reported positive feedback from communities receiving support, and some critics even admitted they were impressed by Musk's efforts. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that his reputation remained tarnished in certain circles. Kevin, his assistant, joined him on the balcony holding a tablet with updated analytics. "The numbers are looking good," Kevin said cautiously. "People seem to be responding well to the housing project, but what?" Musk asked, turning to face him. "The skepticism hasn't gone away," Kevin admitted. "Some still see this as a PR move. You'll need time to rebuild trust completely." Musk sighed, leaning against the railing. "Trust isn't something you can buy or build overnight. I get it. But I'm committed to seeing this through. If I have to prove myself over and over again, so be it." Back at The View, the hosts were wrapping up another episode dedicated to the ongoing discussion. This time, the focus was on grassroots movements led by ordinary people fighting for change. Rachel introduced a segment featuring interviews with activists who had successfully challenged corporations and governments to adopt more ethical practices. As the stories unfolded, the audience listened intently, inspired by the courage and determination of these individuals. After the show ended, Rachel lingered in the studio, watching the replay on a monitor. Mark approached her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You did good today," he said, handing her one of the cups. "Thanks," Rachel replied, though her expression was pensive. "But sometimes I wonder if we're making any real difference. All this talk, it feels like shouting into the void sometimes." Mark chuckled softly. "Maybe, but shouting into the void is better than staying silent. At least you're planting seeds. Whether they grow or not depends on everyone else." Rachel nodded, taking a sip of her coffee. "You're right. We're not responsible for fixing everything, just for starting the conversation." As the days turned into weeks, Jasmine and Musk found themselves crossing paths again, not physically but through the ripple effects of their actions. Jasmine continued to use her platform to spotlight issues of inequality and corporate responsibility, while Musk poured resources into expanding Future Foundations. Their approaches couldn't have been more different, yet both were working towards similar goals, creating a better future for humanity. One afternoon, Jasmine attended a community event organized by local activists advocating for workers' rights. She spoke briefly, encouraging attendees to keep pushing for transparency and fairness. Afterward, she mingled with the crowd, listening to their stories and offering words of encouragement. One woman approached her, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for speaking up," the woman said. "People like us, we don't always have a voice. Knowing someone out there cares means everything." Jasmine embraced the woman, moved by her words. "You're the ones doing the hard work," Jasmine replied. "I'm just here to amplify your voices." Meanwhile, Musk visited a newly constructed affordable housing development funded by Future Foundations. As he walked through the neighborhood, He met families who expressed gratitude for the opportunity to live in safe, stable homes. One father shook his hand firmly, saying, "We never thought we'd have a place like this. Thank you for making it possible." Musk nodded, humbled by the encounter. For all his ambition and vision, moments like these reminded him why he had embarked on this journey in the first place. Despite their differences, Jasmine and Musk began to recognize a shared truth. Progress required collaboration, not conflict. Neither could solve the world's problems alone, but together with others, they might create lasting change. The clash that had once divided them now served as a catalyst for unity, proving that even the most heated disagreements could lead to growth. In the final days of the month, Jasmine appeared on a podcast hosted by a journalist named Emma. During the interview, Emma asked her about the confrontation with Musk and whether she regretted anything. Jasmine paused, considering the question carefully before responding. "I don't regret challenging him," she said. "What I regret is how polarizing it became. People started taking sides instead of focusing on the bigger picture. Accountability shouldn't be a battle. It should be a conversation." Emma nodded, then posed another question. "Do you think Musk has changed because of what happened?" Jasmine smiled faintly. "I think he's realized that leadership comes with responsibilities. Whether he acts on that realization remains to be seen. But I believe everyone has the capacity to grow, even someone like him." On the other side of the country, Musk gave an interview to a tech magazine where he was asked about Jasmine. "She pushed me harder than anyone has in a long time," he admitted. "And maybe that's what I needed. Not every criticism is valid, but ignoring all of them is dangerous. I've learned that lesson the hard way." As the interviews aired and articles were published, the public began to see both Jasmine and Musk in a new light. They weren't perfect heroes or irredeemable villains. They were human beings navigating the complexities of power and responsibility. Their clash had exposed flaws in the system, yes, but it had also highlighted the potential for redemption and reform. Months later, the controversy faded into the background, replaced by new headlines and fresh debates. Yet its impact lingered. Activists cited Jasmine's courage as inspiration for their own campaigns, while entrepreneurs credited Musk's initiative as a model for socially conscious business practices. Schools incorporated the incident into lessons about ethics and leadership, teaching students the importance of questioning authority and striving for balance. For Jasmine, life returned to a semblance of normalcy. She continued hosting The View, using her platform to champion causes close to her heart. For Musk, the Future Foundations project became a cornerstone of his legacy, earning him praise from unexpected quarters. Both emerged stronger, not because they had won or lost, but because they had grown. On a quiet evening, Jasmine sat on her couch, flipping through channels until she landed on a documentary about the future of technology and humanity. The narrator's voice echoed softly in the background as images of Mars missions, AI advancements, and sustainable cities flashed across the screen. Jasmine smiled, thinking about how far the world had come since that fateful morning on The View. "It's not perfect," she whispered to herself, "but it's moving forward." Across the country, Musk stood in his office, gazing at a framed photo of Earth taken from space. He thought about the billions of people counting on innovators, like him, to shape a brighter tomorrow. For all the challenges and controversies, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Perhaps the real winners weren't Jasmine or Musk, or even the audiences watching from afar. Perhaps the true victors were the ideas themselves: accountability, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of a better future. And as long as those ideas endured, the conversation would continue.